Well, it's February. And what that means for me is I got to get back to work. I always take the month of January off to recover from building crafts for the Christmas season. But now that it's February, I can't be lazy anymore. And what I need is some cabinets built for the barn I'm building up north so we can finish it this year so we can start the house next year. But to build cabinets, I need some sawhorses. And my pair of sawhorses are 3 hours away up north sitting in that barn. So I figured I'd do a quick video on how I build my favorite type of sawhorse. Now basically I got a 2x4x8 here, and I'm going to cut it into 3 pieces, 31 and 7/8 long, and then I'm going to use to make an I-beam. So let's do that. Safety first. Alright, instead of measuring out, usually what I do, set them on top of each other, draw my line. Alright, after I got them cut then, I marked the center line down one board, and I measured 2, 11, 21, and 30 inches down. That keeps the screws that I'm going to put in about even. Alright, and then so I don't have to measure twice, I set the first 31 and 7/8 board on top of the second one, and these are the 2 best boards. If you got an end that has, you know, a little typical crap like that on it, then I use that as the beam in the middle. So we'll get these holes drilled, and I'll show you the next step. Alright, once you got your holes drilled in both your top and bottom board here, then what I do is I pick whatever I think is the best one, which will be the top, and I take a 1/2 inch drill, because I'm going to use a 1/2 inch dowel, and I wrap tape around it about, I don't know, what is that, 1/2 inch in. And that's just so I can avoid drilling deeper than I want to. You just have to watch it, you know. Now, you don't have to be that precise on this, it's just a sawhorse. But the reason I do this and glue dowel in over the top of the screws is often, if I'm using my circular saw and making a cut, I may cut into this board 1/8 of an inch or so. And this gives me a little leeway because I'm unlucky. And that way when I cut into this board, I don't hit my screw and screw up my blade. Alright, so there. We got our pre-drilling for our dowels done. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the little sander, alright, and then I just cut the edges down. Well, you can throw it on the ground too, that helps knock the edges off. But I take the edges off. Who turns the tool on and tries to talk? I take the edges off of these so they're less likely, like if you bang something on there, to chip a chunk out. So just real quickly, I just take the edges off. Just like that. And I'll go through and I'll hit the other ones, and then I'll screw this together. Alright, you got your holes drilled, and now you take your boards, and basically what I do, I mean, you don't have to be that precise, it's a sawhorse, man. But I mark that, what is it, 1 3/4 in, halfway through, and then I mark that at 3/4. And I just put my line on there, line it up, and I screw it down. Alright, now I go over to this side, line that one up, screw it down, alright, now we take our other one, this will be our top, and the same thing, we line up our middles of our boards. All right, when it's time to attach the legs, what I like to do is I kind of hold it up there and I eyeball it, and I like to pre-drill my screw holes so I can get the tightest fit. So the first holes I'm going to drill, I'm going to put on, and I'm going to drill at an upward angle, okay? So that way when you put the screw in, it pulls the leg up tight up against this top board. Okay, so I got the first 2 screw holes drilled. I had the one pre-drilled before I started the camera. Alright, and then I'll put them in. And now with the pre-drilled holes, it shouldn't like push back off the horse. It should just screw in real easy. Alright, so you get the first 2 in. And then these, I kind of actually go in the opposite direction a little bit. Because I try and get them to go into this board. Alright? Now you could take time and chisel this out, but these things they're plenty strong. Alright, I'll get the other 3 legs on and we'll go from there. Alright, so now we got the legs all screwed on. So we'll take it out of here, set it on the ground, make sure it isn't all weeble wobbly. Now basically what I do is I take another board, I put it on the inside, up tight against the bottom of the I-beam, and then these sides, and I just draw a line, and then I cut them out. Alright? Now, I already did that. So basically, I'm just taking 4 screws, sticking them in there, like this. But you want to make sure you're on a nice flat surface when you do this, and that your legs are exactly where you want them to be, because after this, there's no more adjustment. Alright, so you ram them in. Woo. First day, new tool, huh? Alright, I'll get the other side in, and then I'll show you cutting these off. Alright, now that you have those braces on, take a fine-tooth blade on your sawzall, cut your dowels off. Alright, get them cut off, sand them perfectly smooth here. Alright, here we go. Sawhorse is completed. Now you notice there's one sitting behind it. Alright, now I built the second one because every sawhorse needs a mate, and I figured I'd show you the changes. A lot of YouTube videos show making it with this brace on the outside, which I made that one. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but I've made, you know, probably a dozen of these things in my lifetime, and I much prefer that brace on the inside. Now, why do I prefer that brace on the inside? Well, 2 reasons. The primary reason is, let me set you down here. All right. So now if you're going to stack these things with this brace on the inside, you pick it up, you got a lot more room for error because you got 3.5 inches more on each side that this is set inside, you're not going to necessarily miss, right? Where if you take this one and you got them braces on the outside, well now, you know, you're pretty close to falling off that thing. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2, like this, you can have, say you got a 20-inch log on here and you don't want it to, but it does, it rolls to the side, you know, this rock solid, right? Cracking my Sawhorse don't want to slide. Now this, I've never had one flip over, but the reality is it doesn't take much pressure with just, that's only 1.5 inches. That's only 1.5 inches. And it doesn't take much pressure to get it to do that. So this is much more confidence inspiring for me. All right, and now the other thing I consider critical when building these is knocking the edges down with a sander. All right, because otherwise, you know, if you use lumber before, you know, you'd be dragging this along or hit a rock or something and it'll chip out. But if you round the edges, that rarely ever happens. All right, and now the plugs. You know, you may be wondering, why did you put dowel plugs in there on top of the screws instead of just sinking the screws deeper? Well, if you sink the screws deeper, you got this little hole in there, and then debris sometimes accumulates in there, and when you least want it, you slide something on there, and there may be a piece of bark in there, and you slide your sanded piece of plywood on, and it gouges it or scratches it, where if you got these plugs in there, that prevents that. And yet it still allows you to be like me and be a wing nut and cut 1/4 inch by accident deeper than your plywood and cut into your sawhorse and not hit that screw. Because I am extremely lucky. If I'm cutting, I can find metal. I'm good at that. And my saw blades don't seem to like that. But basically, in a nutshell, that's how I build my favorite sawhorses. It's not my design. I just copied it off of YouTube and changed it up a little bit. And I just figured I would share the little changes I made in case someone else was making them. And like putting these in, definitely want to angle these top ones up. And I like to pre-drill them, you know, because if you don't pre-drill, sometimes the screw's biting into here and it pushes this board back off of it, and then you don't get as tight as you can be. You know, I like this to be right tight against that board. I don't want it backed off at all. Well, now I guess I gotta stop rambling on about sawhorses and start building my cabinets, which is a whole new adventure. All right, thanks for watching.